manager of a bank that used to be a city councilman. So that's where all that came about too, is that they were wanting part of the action.
Just let me double check that number. You said 0.07, but it's 0.7, right? It's 0.7%.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 0.7%?
Yeah.
Oh,
Which 2 or 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, was probably a decent rate compared to other banks. And now, I think when you go out, when that terms out and we go out again, can't hurt to check with the locals. And obviously, it's hard for the city to go out of town, but at a certain difference, it is citizens' money, and the most we can get for it within, thinking about the overall effects in the community. That money goes out of the community, it's probably going to be loaned somewhere else.
Right.
And so we have to look at our community banks. Are they lending? Do they have satisfactory investment ratings with the feds? Community Reinvestment Act says they all have to.
And they do. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that the auditors request.
Yeah.
And so
We got to take it with a grain of salt and be competitive within our community for sure.
sure.
But I know there's one bank in Albuquerque that's offering 2% CDs now, or they were before this last rate hike.
1 year CDs?
They were 15 months. It
Oh,
was 15 months,
Very
2%. They need the money. They
Yeah.
really need the money for loans, and those loans aren't going to come here. So the rate environment, it's increasing. It'll be higher.
now, on the budget that you sent us also, let's stick with the general fund. It looks like the plan is to fairly heavily deficit spend the general fund. Revenues are estimated at 15.3 million. Expenditures are estimated at 16.1. And we're going to transfer a little over $1 million in revenue out of that to go somewhere else to support spending in other of the funds. It looks like that has a cash balance of 5.4 million, so it can handle that. But I'm assuming then, because this is the approved budget, that's okay with everybody, that we're going to deficit spend in the general fund.
Well, I think the transfer is what raises those expenditures up to that level. They're just budgeting. Is that correct, Dominic?
Well, that's
Those transfers are included to get the expenditures up to 16 million.
And
No.
previously
That's-
discussed.
I'm sorry, that's not what the monthly report shows. The monthly report, now go to July's report, it shows that the general fund is going to spend 16 million plus 1 million transfers expenditures, so it's going to spend 17 million in expenditures. So in essence, the deficit spending, according to what I see here, unless I'm reading something wrong, it says that the general fund is hoping to have 15.3 revenue in and 17.2 expenditures, if I'm reading this correctly. Which, it's got the cash to support that. I don't see that as a major problem. And I'm assuming then that that is also the wish of the council to do that, to spend over $2 million more, if I'm reading this correctly.
But it's budget, you know what I mean? Does it ever materialize? No, sir. I mean, we can say, this is what we went through with all directors. We said, what are your plans for the year? We sat down and we discussed what they think they're gonna do, what they can do, and well, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but the way things are going now, nothing happens immediately. So we're so far out on projects and things of that nature. I mean, ordering a pickup truck takes 8 months. So by the time we get it, we might be pushed into the next year. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where we said, this is what we're going to try to do this year. Will it materialize? more than likely not, but this is how we budgeted. And the budget shortfall from what you're saying or you're concerned about, mid-year, we are going to go back to review to see how our gross receipts are coming in and adjust at that time. But, I
Okay.
mean, right now is not the time to do it. The revenues were based off of what we were seeing, the trending coming in. And we did, what did I do, an extra, look at the 11 million from last year's budget. So I brought it up, I think 15%, just based off of trending.
Oh, so you did a trend analysis
Yep.
of the past, and then what? You added 15%?
And then I bumped it up by 15.
Okay, all right. All right, well, thank you on that. The world that I came from, we looked at budgets slightly differently. And yes, they're all estimates, but if you have an expenditure budget and you hand that to a director of a department or something like that, it is understood that that person is probably going to spend that amount of money. But what I hear you say is many times they don't. They don't.
They don't. And I understand what you're saying. This should be 15,305,957 on top and 15,305,957 on bottom, balanced out. We work with that throughout the year to get it to that level.
Okay. And do you have a fixed point where you do another analysis? Is it at the 3-year end of the fiscal year, or the 3-month into the fiscal year, or 6 months into the fiscal year? where you can-
Mid-year is whenever.
Mid-year? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, all right.
I mean, the previous finance director, that never took place. That's what my intentions are.
And if I could ask a couple more questions. In your budget for this year, you have a couple of categories that I didn't quite understand. One category that has a budget is called emergency medical services. What is that?
EMS, that's the, where are you looking, I'm sorry?
The budget recap page,
Yeah, it's a,
that's from our resolution, the approved budget.
That could be for drug testing or
It's called budget.
inmates, prisoners. When we
at
get
the-
arrested and they go to the hospital, that they gotta give them attention, medical attention. That might be for that.
It's the fund number 2600,
What was the amount?
DFA.
This one.
then, by the way, that's not a huge budget, so let's move on to the next one. The next one's titled Municipal Street. It's account code 21600.
Yes, sir.
What is that?
That's our streets department.
And they're estimating a revenue of almost 1.3 million. Where does that revenue come from?
Gross receipts tax, gas tax.
Oh, so that's, okay, that tracks, okay. The next one is account code 29900, other special revenues. What is that? It's scheduled at 439 million.
What is included? I would have to, because there's multiple funds in there. I'd have to pull the budget book to tell you exactly what's in there.
Oh, so could it be like grant funds from
Yes,
outside?
yeah.
Ah, okay, all right.
And so they've grouped, this is like I said, recap. So there's groups into these specific
Yes,
ones here.
yes. Okay, all right.
But that should be thousands, not millions.
Well, this one is 439,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
You said millions.
Sorry. What's a few zeros between,
Well, there are a lot. Our budget isn't in that million. that kind of-
yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else do you have there, Mr. Whitaker?
The last thing, we had talked about this in the past. There's another category under the budget for the new year, 6,500 account code, and it's called Gross Receipts Tax Proceeds Project. And does that include gross receipts tax from cannabis?
No, sir. If you go further down, you're gonna see 28,000 Cannabis Regulation Act, last one on the list.
Yes,
And actually,
but that shows zero revenue for the new year.
we don't have any. We didn't have any.
No, this is for the
So-
new year.
So the state, the local DFA, Department of Finance and Administration, they requested that any municipalities or the counties do not budget it at all for the first quarter of the new year. But because we had received the $6,363, we actually received it last year, so
Right.
we had cash. And so they asked us to budget, or to put that cash, but do not put budgets until we know what is coming in at. So at the end of the quarter, the end of September, we'll do a bar to add in, I mean, we're gonna take a guess and we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna get $10,000 a month gross receipts tax. So we'll add that times 9 and we'll budget that.
But you'll have 3 months,
Yeah.
4 months maybe track record.
Yes, sir. And
Before
that
you-
was
yeah.
per the state.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That was a letter the state sent saying, don't put anything yet, let's see what an average comes out within 3 months and so, and then we'll get an average to, you guys can start working on it.
So in essence, that will be found new money
Yes, sir.
3 months into this fiscal year that the council can consider what to do with it. So
Pothole patching, streets,
that's up to you, sir.
no, it'll all go on that.
Is that what you think it's going to end up with?
I think so.
Yeah.
Probably, we'll probably have to, it all depends where we're at.
Yeah,
But
and I think that's probably a smart idea.
it all depends where we're at.
Flood warning?
Because we are in the process of finding out where all the financings that we can go towards for funding for whatever we're facing with in the future, in the near future, whether it's grants or matching grants or low percent interest loans. So we're looking into all that now.
Okay.
So we might have to use some of that money for that.
And then I have one last question on the budget for the current year. Is there anything in this budget for, that deals with the fire and the floods that would be reimbursable from, possibly reimbursable from the feds? Or is that being kept separate and it's not budgeted under the standard budgets that we see in front of us right now?
That's a multi-question. So the time wasn't here, so we knew about some stuff. We knew that we were going to be faced with some expenditures in relation to the fire as well as the floods. And so we did budget those areas in the enterprise funds. And right now, as we speak, I'll be bringing you guys a bar next council meeting, and next finance committee meeting, because of the expenditures that are taking place before we get reimbursed. I mean, it's coming out of pocket first, you know what I mean? And so we are keeping a running tab. Maria and her team are keeping a running tab on all expenditures that are taking place. And they meet weekly, if not, no, they meet weekly, right? With FEMA and Army Corps and all these folks. So they have weekly meetings. Everything's being tracked, and it's all being tracked by the utilities department, because those are the folks that are going out there and having to replace whatever they need to replace and keep track of all the documentation and support.
So through June of this year, do you have any idea what that tally is for the possibly reimbursable funds?
Through June?
Through June, or July, if it's easy.
I mean, would you consider salaries as well? Because a lot of this, I mean,
Well, it would be up to the rules, if I were doing it, I'd dump everything I could possibly think of into
Of course,
that category.
definitely.
Including salaries.
Yes,
Of
definitely.
people going out, driving equipment, cleaning things up,
Probably
doing
through June.
whatever.
I would take a wild guess at about $500,000.
Okay. So that is a possible new source of revenue through June.
I wouldn't go for a new source of revenue, I mean.
Yeah,
it's
or
already
there would
out
be a
of pocket.
lawsuit against the feds and they would pay it.
It's already out of pocket, so it's just gonna be reimbursable.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It would be reimbursable, so it would be a new source of funds.
Not necessarily, because it came out of the bank already, so it's replenishing.
Oh, I know,
Yeah.
I know. Okay,
Along that note,
Yes, sir.
the big dollars that this company from Alaska is spending on the Guyanus Channel, the gabions, all the dirt work they've done up there, is that coming out of our pocket to start with,
Yes, sir.
to be reimbursed? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, all the construction companies that have come on board to go and clear and grade and what, the log removal, everything, I mean, comes out of us first.
Wow.
and are there any
Well,
plans?
the-
Are you going to settle that
that's-
issue? Because that's a lot of money to come out of the pocket.
The governor put in $20 million aside, and because the mayor and council already went and declared a disaster through the fire and then another one through flooding, now we're able to tap into that kind of funding. So when the Corps of Engineers comes in and they hire all these contractors and so forth, I mean, we can tap to some of that money. This filtering system, we can tap into some of that money.
Okay.
But the overtime, police, utilities, the equipment, if we have to man a roadblock or we have to, do any improvements up in the Guyanus River to the diversion, all this other stuff, I mean, a lot of that, Maria is keeping track and we'll get reimbursed down the road. The city of Las Vegas will end up suing the federal government, and that's how we'll get reimbursed most of this funding that we're putting out front.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's why we're at the point that eventually that we need to start looking at other water sources and this and the other, and it's gonna take more money, so that's why we're looking at what's our financial status and where can we go get some more money if we have to, low interest rate or grants that are matching grants and so forth. The governor's losing out some money on economic developments for other purposes that might help us offset some of this cost. So it's an everyday revolving new adventures that we're tackling as we live each day.
yeah.
So
And that's great, that's good that
yeah,
it's
we
being
didn't know
tackled.
that Peterson was going to get contaminated also.
Yeah,
We didn't know that it was going to erupt the embankment there. So those are the kind of things that we're dealing with, and they've been really challenging. But everybody's working together to try to get to the same goal, and the same goal is not to run out of water. So.
and I probably have said this multiple times, but one last question. If I look at the enterprise funds, which are water enterprise, solid waste, wastewater, and gas utility, those four funds all have negative transfer dollars associated with them in the budget. Am I interpreting that right to mean that means they're helping fund other activities around the budget?
Correct.
And so they, and a combined transfer are 2, 3, almost $4 million. So $4 million of those four funds are funding other activities in the budget.
Correct.
And that's a correct interpretation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Rankin, question? No more? Mr. Chavez, you want to go into letter D, July, AP checklist?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, should we clear the finance report recommendation from the committee by vote? I would move to accept the finance report and recommend council approval.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Now, this was the same finance report that was given to mayor and council no, the last meeting.
Oh, it's already, it's already,
No, sir, we're going mayor
Oh,
council
this
next
one,
week.
this one, go ahead.
we got this one in time.
Wednesday.
Okay.
All right. Letter D.
I stand for any questions on the check report.
Do you have any lists on that?
No,
report?
sir.
No? And,
I am reserving my questions
Or-
until we get a permanent new finance director. And then I'll ask questions.
so, that might be a year from now.
I was gonna ask, where are we on that?
Yeah. Well, it's advertised and no one's applied and we don't have we had a recruiting effort this last week. Our HR department had a recruiting and I think there's, I don't know, what, 60 openings and they hired maybe 20
Yeah, it's very,
people in different positions.
But not this one, not the,
Not the finance director that I know of. Yeah.
okay.
So,
Then I'll change my attitude for next meeting.
well, I'm just saying, you know, we got to work with what we have, and I think Dominic's really carried us forward through this. And, you know, understandable, I would be probably in the same position as he is, not being able to answer every question to your satisfaction when it is a big budget and there's a lot of line items on there. So that's why I say if you ever have any questions, particularly on any particular issue or any funding or where it's at or where it's coming from, I mean, get together with him in his office and have him show you how the system works and how we transfer money around back and forth, whether it's from grants or legislative or wherever it's coming from, you know. And that's how come he comes before mayor and council and does those budget adjustments.
Right.
So I don't know. That's all I can tell you. I don't know where you're coming from that you won't ask any questions till the next we get
Well,
a finance director.
I looked through the list,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have any super burning questions about some of the expenditures. We're talking about the AP listing, right?
Yeah.
The expenditures that
Okay.
for the last month.
All right.
And I didn't have any super burning questions about that. And there's probably a bunch of fine-tuned questions I might have. And if you're willing, I can stop in sometime and ask you a little bit about that.
anytime, or shoot me an
Because
email.
I think I now have a pretty good understanding of how the budget's been laid out.
Please feel free to
uh,
send me an
Mr.
email and I
Chairman,
can.
And
get
especially
back to
the
you.
transfers.
Yeah.
And who's paying for what, and where the profit centers are, and where the
Okay.
sinkhole centers are.
Yeah, just send Mr. Chavez an email, give him a time frame or a timeline or when you want to meet with him, and he'll be more than willing to meet with you and discuss those issues. Councilman Romero and myself did meet with the auditors this last week, because when they do an audit, they always ask mayor and council if anybody has any questions about any of the auditing that's going on or anything that's going on within the city limits that they ought to check into or audit. And we had a good meeting with him, and I was happy with the outcome. And we did have, each one of us had a few concerns, and we pointed them out. And so that's how we were able to run some new ordinances last year to keep more accountability of organizations and so forth, because things were findings. There were some findings. So,
And I've been out of the audit game for a little while. Does the auditor still send a management letter to the board of directors, the city council members?
they'll send
In the old days?
findings. They'll send their findings at the end of the day
Yeah,
to the city manager and Mr. Chavez, and they'll get together with him on a closing, and then we'll have to those findings, we'll have to respond to them within a time period
right.
to do corrections on them or to address them, and those all come to mayor and council.
Were there any material findings in the audit?
Where they just,
I'm in the audit as we speak.
Yeah.
They were here last week, no, week before, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right. We're only 1 month.
so.
Okay, all right.
That's why I
yeah.
say,
And
whenever
so-
they're done with the audit, they'll send us the findings, and they'll do a closure, and we'll move forward with it.
Yeah, okay.
Can I make one comment on the AP checklisting?
Yes, sir.
In my view, this committee is a 50,000-foot view of the city's finances. I'm not going to waste our time by asking, go through that AP checklist and ask something about a $600 check. I just don't think that's what we want to do, Bob, as going forward. You know, it's not our purview to do that, that level of scrutiny.
Yeah.
Right, that's why I have auditors.
Right. So that's my own comment. I don't need the
No.
checklisting. I'm not going to go through the AP checklisting because it's just not, I don't think it's our job at this level. So,
Well, my view is that, I would agree with you that at the $600 level, it's not important, nor should this committee be involved in that. But the larger expenditures and some of the trends that you can notice by looking at that report over several months are valuable and are helpful to the committee. They would be helpful to me.
Sure.
And so that's just my little twist on what you said about the AP listing.
And I'll try and find out where we are with our new finance director's position. But,
Are we aware of why nobody's applying? I mean, it's hard to figure that out sometimes, but,
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think,
well, one obvious question is the anticipated pay level high enough?
well, there's too many things involved. I mean, if I want to come work for the city, my question would be, would I want to work with the city manager? Do I want to work with mayor and council? Do I want to inherit the issues that they've been going through the last 2 years, which is the pandemic, the water shortage, and what are the ones?
It's not an easy job.
You know, so well,
I get beat
what
up on a daily
the
basis, and it's one of those
what the
things
past
that-
administration went through, the reputation that we got, and this and that. So, somebody smart, somebody that wants to move forward and be a good finance director and work for a good firm and this and that, I mean, it's going to be costly too. And that's adjustable, and that's fine. But most people, I mean, I'm picky as to where I want to go work or who I want to work for. And so, and what am I getting myself into? So all those things are important, it's, those are, I mean, we make choices in life, and maybe somebody don't want to work for us. Maybe they want to work for a big city. Maybe somebody don't like a small town. There's so many things that could be, I mean, we're very lucky to get a good economic development director down here from out of state, but it is out there, and we are trying. And
Mr. Montoya, just one question. What is the range, the salary range for a director, a department director?
That's 70 to 80,
I have this one at 80.
80,000.
But let me tell you, You're not gonna pull anybody out of Santa Fe or out of Albuquerque or anything for a range, so.
Those city governments are much higher.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And, you know, we work with, like Councilman Montoya said, we work with what we have, and fortunately, my staff have been very strong for me, because what I do can't be done without them. You understand, you know what I mean? And, is everything being done that should be done? No. When you don't have the help, you don't, I mean.
Would it be helpful to hire a temporary until
well,
a new director can be hired and that temporary would work
Well, you're
and do
looking
stuff
at,
you're looking at?
you're looking at
the temporary.
No, in addition to you, a temporary employee, not an interim director,
Sir,
but just
I-
another set of eyes and hands and brain to work on things in the department.
That would be lovely.
There you go.
Um,
Until
I
such
can't-
time as they hire.
I
Yeah,
can't
well-
even find an accountant, much less a director.
we're very fortunate to have these two individuals with us. And Darlene, she was gonna retire, but I guess the city manager and Dominic convinced her to stay with us.
I've talked her out of retiring twice.
So, you know.
I mean, she's really instrumental. She
Yeah.
she handles
So,
What's her official position?
general accountant. Darlene and Eleanor are both
Yeah,
general
you're-
accountants.
You're called the general accountant? Okay.
but, I'm gonna stop that conversation there,
Yeah.
Okay.
because it's not an item on the agenda to begin with. It is an important question. It's good to know where we're at and where we're moving forward, but that's where we're at. And sometimes we have interim city managers and interim this and interim that, and we're not the first administration and not the last. So we are working on it and we're moving forward on that. Next item is letter C, which is our next scheduling meeting for September the 19th, 2022 at 2 p.m., same place, City Hall Chambers.
Okay.
And I'll ask for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, none. Meeting adjourned at,
Pretty good.
what time?
I'll go finish my payroll.
255.
2:55. Thank you.
One of the interesting things that a private business person